Hello there, and welcome to our latest YouTube broadcast for Catholic Concern for Animals. And today we are very pleased to welcome John Woodhouse from Laudato Si Animators UK, who's going to talk to us about Laudato Si Animators, the UK group of Laudato Si Animators, and what they do and how they take forward the message of Laudato Si. So welcome, John. Thank you for being part of our broadcast.
Thank you very much, Gerald. It gives me a lot of pleasure to talk to you about this amazing document, which only costs £4.95 and it's very readable. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the encyclical because you can read it for yourself. I'm going to talk more about what the animators are about and start with a little bit about my involvement, because during COVID, I started doing a course online from the Vatican, which I think was about 6 sessions. And throughout that course, I kept on going, who else is in the United Kingdom? So I put into the chat of every session my email address and asked people to contact me. So as a result, I now have 80 people on my emailing list. They don't all come to meetings, but since that course, we have met every, fortnight actually, on Zoom, and we've achieved an enormous amount. Our biggest success so far was the Lent course, which was based on the Bishop's Conference films, Caring for the Planet, and our handouts actually reached 500 people. And a lot of people watched the course and really enjoyed it, and we encourage people to train as Laudato Si animators. The purpose of the animators is to get the encyclical into the church in this country, and that is not an easy task, because I can tell you numerous stories about clergy who don't want to know, and enthusiasts in a congregation finding themselves on their own. But I think the big change was actually COP26, because everybody started talking to each other, which I'm very much in favour of, and started talking to Green Christian, started talking to Friends of the Earth. In fact, the stories from Glasgow are just amazing about all these people from different organisations coming together. So if we're going to achieve anything about the climate, we've got to do it together. It's really essential. So we've worked very closely with CAFOD, we've worked closely with Justice and Peace, Journey to 2030. All of these organisations have been very supportive. We are not a separate body. We're not, from the beginning, we did not want to set up our own thing. We wanted to work with others because we were very aware that lots of people like yourselves have been in the fields for a very long time. So we're relative newcomers and we've learned a lot from each other. So that's been our main thing, actually getting people together and passing on information. I spent a lot of my time sending emails about petitions and what's happening and all the rest of it.
I think I'm right in saying, John, that course you mentioned, the course that you were involved in, is still available online, isn't it? So if people
yes, you can access any parish can do that course. Yeah, the films are available from the Bishop's Conference quite easily. It's not a problem. They're all excellent. I mean, you've got people like Comedy Gray and there, Bishop John. You've got some really good speakers. It's very well put together, and you can use it for discussion. So you've got suggestions for discussion. I would strongly recommend that course. I think it was very inspiring.
And if people want to get involved in the UK group, how do they do that?
I suppose probably the best thing is to send me an email. So if I put my email in the chat, and
we'll stick on a caption for you, John. There's no problem.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you could do it through Magda. Magda is our coordinator from. She's not in Rome. She's in Poland, but she's actually working for Laudato Si movement, and she comes onto our Zooms quite regularly until well, until Ukraine happened, because she's become very involved with Ukraine refugees. So we understand that, and we've let her, you know, she stepped back. But she has been very, very helpful to getting us all. The other thing I really want to stress is that the international aspect of it. Throughout the training, we were talking to people from all over the world, and we've had people coming on our Zooms from Africa, Hungary, Poland. So we've actually had a lot of international. We've been encouraged to talk to animators in other countries because the UK is seen as somewhere which is well ahead in the field. We've done a lot, so they want to use our expertise and our ideas in other contexts. When I say we've done a lot, I think we've got a very long road to go because we're basically doing this for 7 years. So we've got 7 goals which we want to achieve over the next 7 years. And basically, you've got 7 groups that we're trying to get out. Lots of 7s. Laudato Si families, Laudato Si dioceses, Laudato Si schools, Laudato Si universities, Laudato Si hospitals and healthcare centres, Laudato Si businesses and agricultural farms, Laudato Si religious orders. And those are the 7 groups we're aiming for. I've got 7 Laudato Si goals: response to the cry of the earth, response to the cry of the poor, ecological economics, community engagement and participatory action, ecological spirituality, ecological education, and I can't read this one. I'll have to put that on the screen. It's on yellow, I can't read it. But just to come back to some of those areas, the dioceses are very crucial. Because there are environmental leads across the country. I think nearly every diocese has now got an environmental lead. We're in touch with them, and we also in our network we have people in each diocese. Well, not every diocese, but we've got somebody from our animators in the diocese that people can contact. So my role is to put you in touch with that person if you're whatever diocese you're in. So. And we often find that people already know each other anyway. And the number 7 religious orders have been brilliant. They've been absolutely brilliant. People like Sister Kate and Sister Zoe have been on protests. They've done all sorts of things. They've made us wonderful suggestions. And they've been an inspiration, frankly. Some areas we haven't addressed at all. I mean, like hospitals and businesses, universities. I'm in touch with university chaplains, but that's about it, really. So that's areas where there's still a lot to be done. Our main thing from the beginning was to work in a parish, actually trying to get people in your parish involved. And that's been, some areas have been amazing. Cheltenham's done incredible work. And we've had wonderful stories from Brentwood. And I have to say that the sort of response across the country has been quite sort of patchy. I mean, like Brentwood has put a lot of money into producing a very nice book and pledge cards given to every single parishioner in the diocese. They've really taken it on board, whereas others seem to have hardly done anything. So it's very patchy, really. And then what I will say is good practice. Share good practice and go with that. What's worked somewhere was going to work somewhere else. So perhaps I could just share the PowerPoint now. Okay.
But if you go through those, then we can talk about it at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Try and get this. Oh, can you see that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks fine.
That's working. We've got the whole screen, which is good.
Well, that's fine as it is. That's fine as it is, John. We'll take it like that. Go on.
Sorry, I missed that.
That's fine as it is. If you just want to talk to it and take us through it.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, can we still believe in the future? Well, I think this is a very important question. I mean, our people last year have put a great deal of effort into COP26 and then felt terribly down and very disappointed. And but I still see that there's hope. I think we really have, especially among the young people. I mean, they are pushing us all the time. So I still think there's, and I think action is the answer. We've actually got to stop talking and actually go and do things. Well, here's the Pope talking to somebody on a train, I think. And St. Francis, we go back to St. Francis of Assisi from the very beginning. I want to stress that every meeting we have starts with prayer and ends with prayer. It's a very strong element, and also the birds and the animals, this comes up all the time. we have some of our members who are particularly strong on stressing that. I think that's particularly valuable to keep reminding us of that. This is a very important point. The document was written to everybody. It's not just for the Catholic Church, it's for the whole planet. What a wonderful document it is. The more you study it, the more you find out. Yeah, well, quite. And there you have the 7 things, and actually the one I couldn't read was adoption of simple lifestyles.
I can see why you couldn't read it, John.
It's rather difficult to read. Everything is connected, absolutely. So here we have this guy chopping away at the earth. Beautiful picture, actually.
Mm.
Yeah, I think he has a wonderful point there about. I think one of the things about this document is it's true. It's about ecology and the world and all that sort of things. But it's also about spirituality. It's about a spiritual desert. This whole idea about dominion over other creatures, a misinterpretation of Genesis. Yeah, I think this is such an important point. We've heard this over and over again, especially from our CAFOD friends, that it's all linked together. The people who suffer the most are the most vulnerable. This is where it gets difficult. We do need a fundamental change in how we behave in our economic practices. Of course, CAFOD Live Simply has really taken off actually a great deal more in the last 2 years. I mean, we've heard regularly from CAFOD about the number of parishes, the number of schools particularly got involved with Live Simply. And you could go for the Laudato Si award actually from, if you've done Live Simply, you could actually go for that in your parish and your school. It's very, very close. You've already done all the work, really. Yeah, you see, we don't want to give up what we enjoy. I mean, I personally am now saying I'm not going to fly anywhere because I think we can't go on like that. We've got to start thinking, rethinking how we use the car. Whether we need a car at all. a new way of thinking about human beings, life, society, and our relationship with nature. Discovering God in all things. It's very Ignatian, it's very Jesuit. Yes, ecological conversion. That is absolutely crucial. You've got to get people to realise that they've got to change. This is not easy to do. I mean, it's people will say, "Oh, yes, I know all about that. I do recycling." Actually, that's a stop, but it's a drop in a bucket, really, in the ocean. Sorry. Yeah, I think we've learned a lot from people in other parts of the world, actually. Indigenous communities, how they deal with the problems that they're facing. We need to learn from them. Well, yes. I love this globe. It's tremendous, isn't it? So there's the address for the website. The website has been greatly improved. In fact, if you go to the website now, you'll find a lot about Laudato Si Animators UK on it, which gives us a lot of pleasure. We actually produce, in our writing group, every week we produce an article which I put onto our Facebook page, which is Laudato Si UK, and we send things to parishes for their newsletters, short items. We've done a lot of work on writing, trying to get the message out. Can we still believe in the future? Yes. So that's the PowerPoint.
I think one of the things that strikes me, I've had a look at the Laudato Si movement's website before, and the 7 aims and the 7 categories. I think the thing that strikes me about them, and you going through them like that, John, is that there's in ecological movements, in environmental action, there's always been lots of talk of, for example, thinking globally, acting locally, of the paradoxes that we face, the kind of need to think economically, but also to think about individual behavior and so on. And these 7, the 2 sevens actually bring them together really well. If you look at them as a whole, it enables people to go into whichever one they particularly like or particularly attracts them. But taken as a whole, if we take action on them all, they actually do make sense in terms of providing some comprehensive view of all this.
You're absolutely right, Gerald. I think there's also the Laudato Si Action Platform, which you can join onto, and you're asked to make various pledges. We have not been promoting that very much because it does need to be improved. It's a kind of basic thing like, what currency do you use, and doesn't give British pounds? Well, of course, some of us are not very happy about that. But those sort of things, I've done it, and it does send you an email reminding you of your pledges. And I have to be honest and say that when I filled that in, I thought I was doing a lot, but I'm not actually. I'm not doing very much at all. Actually, I could be doing a great deal more. There are lots of ideas about things like what I could be doing in my own life. I think we have to be converted ourselves before we can actually try to convert anybody else. You can. It's like anything. If you join something and you're enthusiastic, but you've got to take on board what you're on about. Because you can't put the message across. And also people will say, well, it's all terribly hypocritical, isn't it?
And I think that's one of the reasons why actually a faith-based approach is so useful here, because the faith-based approach actually, I think, comprehends that it's not just a question of going through the motions. You have to have faith. You have to believe in it, and if you believe, you will do things because you believe, rather than just because you're told to do them. And I think that's extremely important. in our society now to move forward to these kind of aims, and to actually take care of that wonderful environment out there that we have. I think it's very important that we not just do what we're told to do the recycling, you know, go and cycle and walk rather than take the car, but that we actually understand that and have a deeper sense and belief in that.
Yes, and yeah, I want to add too that although I've met very few of these people in person, I've gained an awful lot of friends all over the country who have been so encouraging. They've actually, I would say it's a deepening of faith going on here, actually, by hearing other people's prayers, by hearing other people's projects and what they've actually been doing. It's been so encouraging and actually helps me to keep going. I think that's a very important element of it, is the companionship. We actually had a wonderful Zoom with a group who were opposing a coal mine in the border of Poland. And it was so moving. These people were likely to be attacked actually by protesters. But we prayed to them, and we actually, and they were okay. They were able to do their protests, and it was all right. But it was very moving to actually be involved in that and realize. And then you wake up and think, sorry, there's going to be a coal mine here in Britain. Why? Is there going to be a coal mine? And we've got to protest about that. So that sort of thing. Of course, what I wanted also to say to you was about animals, actually, because there's been a great big debate between us about giving up meat, and a lot of discussion about farming. Commodity Gray has been particularly strong on this issue. She actually, in her theological lecture, she will actually bring in factory farming and say, what are you doing about this? So that's been a very live issue within the group, and also generally, I think, among our articles that we've written. That's a good thing. I think it's very important we keep on talking about these matters. A lot of it's hidden, you know. We just simply don't know what's going on. That's the problem. We just don't know. I get loads of petitions sent to me, especially from America, about the treatment of animals, which are really basically shocking, which is shocking.
Well, we would absolutely agree with that, John. I mean, you know, we in Catholic Concern for Animals have been talking about the link between the way in which we treat animals in farms, in zoos and circuses, in our domestic lives, and in the environment, as being at one with Laudato Si and the message of Laudato Si, because it is about all of creation, and the animals that we consume, the animals that we have in our lives, are part of that creation. And in fact, in the Ark, in the last couple of Arks, we've had a two-part article by John Berkman, who's been talking about the morality of pig farming, particularly with relation to the United States, which is where he's from, and whether it's morally acceptable that we eat meat or not. So these things are very important to us as well.
Of course, and I think one problem I do have with the book, actually, is it doesn't have an index. My copy doesn't have an index, but Virginia very kindly sent me some quotes from the document, and I'd like to share a couple of those with you. Number 33, it is not enough, however, to think of different species merely as potential resources to be exploited, while overlooking the fact that they have value in themselves. Each year sees the disappearance of thousands of plant and animal species, which we will never know, which our children will never see, because they have been lost forever. The great majority become extinct for reasons related to human activity. Because of us, thousands of species will no longer give glory to God by their very existence, nor convey their message to us. We have no such right. And I think this speaks particularly to me, because the reason I'm doing all this is because of my grandchildren. I don't. I want my grandchildren to enjoy what I've enjoyed. I mean, I'm very fortunate in my life to been to wonderful wildlife parks, been to wonderful, seen so many. I've always loved looking at wild animals, and painting them, and the thought of a world without an elephant or without a leopard, it's just awful. It's just horrific. We should allow that to happen, and also the smaller animals too, the little insects, the little creatures on which we depend. So I just want them to be able to see that. I want future generations to have that, and it's wrong.
I sometimes wonder, John, how our generation is going to be seen by future generations with regard to this. I hope they treat us more kindly than perhaps we deserve. But Chris, is there anything that you'd like to contribute at this stage?
Yes, thanks, Gerald. Certainly, a lot of what John has said is very, very interesting already, and the fact that I think I could take talk about a lot of stuff what he's mentioned. But I think one of the early things that he talked about was action and hope, and my view of the last 7 years is that the document calls for both. It gives hope in itself, and it calls for action. Now, my concern has been that the action hasn't been as great within the Catholic community as we would have wished to see. And again, I think John has outlined some of the reasons why that is. And for frankly, 7 years, and we still haven't got this document understood in a lot of parishes. It's quite incredibly bad. I mean, I don't know the way of putting it, frankly. This document was probably, and it is seen to be, the most important encyclical for a long, long time. As John said, it's addressed to the whole of the world, not just the Catholic community. And in fact, in some ways, the rest of the non-Catholic world has taken more account of it than the Catholic world, which is incredibly sad, amongst other things. And I don't know why that is. I have my views, but I don't know why that is the case. But over the last 7 years, I've had many, many discussions with all sorts of people, and they're aware of the Laudato Si in the environment movement, in the animal welfare movement, and non-Catholics speak about it more than Catholics in some cases, and it's bizarre, frankly. So I fully understand. I fully understand the frustration that John and his colleagues have been finding it in that. But it's action and hope, and the hope is there. We just need to get more of the action. And I'm delighted to see that the Laudato Si movement is at least gelling together under the Laudato Si banner in one sense. It used to be called the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and that was a rather grand title. I'm not sure what it ever meant. Whereas Laudato Si is very much specific. It's on the encyclical. It's based on the document, which I'm delighted to have seen emerging over the last few years. And obviously partners that have been mentioned, like CAFOD and Green Christian and NJPN, people that CCA work with and have worked with for years. I'm delighted they're all working together, and they have been. But this key thing, it's not only in the United Kingdom, but I think John alluded to perhaps more progression elsewhere, in getting the into the lives of ordinary Catholics, is critical. And I'm glad to see this focus on the word 7, the letter number 7. 7 is a big number in the Catholic theology. It's quite important. I'm glad to see focus on 7, because 7 is it links it to Catholic theology, which is good. And people like you talk about Carmody. Carmody is very strong on a lot of these issues for a number of years. Carmody and I worked on a number of so I'm delighted the focus on the encyclical. I said, without being critical, the expression global Catholic climate movement is a bit vague. But focusing on the encyclical itself, I think, is much more refined, and I'm pleased about that. and people like Bishop John have worked, to be fair, for years on this issue. And
Yes.
John has been phenomenally supportive of the whole thing since the encyclical was published. So he gets a gold star, certainly. Others may not, and we won't go into detail. You mentioned some dioceses are better than others, and gold star for me. So I just wanted to say, and God in all things, of course, the quote of that quote, I say, is very Ignatian. And it's very important for us, God in all things, whether it is the smallest insect you were referring to, or the big elephant, or the blue whale, and a lot of stuff. You know, a lot of the big species, big animals get the attention, but you know, the blue whale, an individual blue whale, or an individual polar bear, or whatever it happens to be, or a lion, or a leopard, or is worthy as much as in the same way as an insect is, and the insects get a hard time, especially if you're a wasp, you get a hard time. Those as well. I'm delighted what I've heard from John so far.
Thank you, Chris. You said everything. I totally agree with you. And I think Bishop John has been amazing. I mean, he came to very early on. I've known him for a long time, actually. And it was a very moving Zoom where actually he came and gave us a blessing. And it was like, this is okay, you know, you're fine. I have to say that there is a danger that the bishops would just say, well, Bishop John's the person for the environment and he's dealing with it. But there has been a big change. We've heard from dioceses where the bishops seem to be completely indifferent, suddenly coming out with, oh yes, we've got to do something about this. You know, he's actually pushing it, and that's the Holy Spirit working. It just it can be change. We just have to keep on going, keep on saying with our chief. And I want to say about the synod process, because in Suffolk and Westminster, we put a submission in from Laudato Si Animators and Justice and Peace, which was specifically around Laudato Si for the synod, because I see the whole thing as joined up. If you look at Pope Francis's documents and his encyclicals, and the whole thing leading through from Laudato Si into Fratelli Tutti into the synod, it's all joined up thinking. I really do like that. So I say we use the synod process to actually put our message out, and that we've certainly tried to do that. We certainly have, because the thing I really would like to see in the church is that the green issues are at the top of the agenda of every single meeting. That every meeting should be saying, does this fit in with Laudato Si? Does this fit in with ecology? Are we doing things in the right way? Are we? And if we're not, we need to stop and say, well, sorry, this is not helping the planet, what we're doing. Because we have a role to give, we actually have a really very strong role to give a very good example of what we could, society could be doing. So, you know, that's what I feel anyway. I feel quite passionate about that, because I just think if we're not conserving resources and we're not using green energy, and if we're not, well, how can we preach at anyone? We can't, actually.
And what do you see the future here, John, in terms of, you know, I mean, do we have a future? What is the future? Well, in terms of animators, what is the future? Where are you going with this?
That's a very nice question, Gerald. Well, first of all, there's about 24 in the country who are training as animators at this moment, and a couple of our animators are actually involved in the course, so that gives us a really good way of getting in touch with them and getting them involved with our network. We don't expect everybody to join our network. We're not saying that, but we're saying that we can offer help, and we're there and we can give support. I I see the future as a lot of work, because the Synod, if you take the Synod, when I look at the reports that I've read so far, Laudato Si is very low down in the actual, and even in mentions. It's just, in one report I saw environmental issues clumped with ecumenism, and I was very disappointed about that. I just thought, well, that's not really good enough. So I see this in a process as an ongoing process. It's not something, the report's being written at the moment, but that's not the end of it at all. We just need to keep going at that. I think we're going to, hopefully we are going to expand. I think we're going to have more people involved in our network and in our networking. And I also, there are some of our group who have been very strong in the ecumenical aspect. They've actually worked very closely with Green Christian and with the Church of England. Recently I was at a wonderful Zoom where we heard the Church of England officer for the environment in an hour. Well, no, she, no, shorter than that. She gave a fantastic presentation about what churches could be doing. And we're on to her. We said we really want her to come and talk to the Catholic clergy. So we really want to share, what the Church of England is well ahead of us on this, well ahead, as I'm sure you're aware of this. And also, I want to say the interfaith thing, because I've been very involved with putting on interfaith events, and it's been really inspiring to hear what Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims say about creation and what they're doing. Eco-mosque, eco-church, eco-synagogue, fantastic stuff they're doing. So we just need to learn from this good practice and say, right, we'll share that. So I see the next 7 years as lots of work. I think it's worth it. I really do.
The animator's role, as I understand it, is to provide support and encouragement to those in the church, but also in other areas like schools and businesses and so on, with understanding the message of Laudato Si and carrying that through into their ordinary lives. So if we have somebody watching this who is in a diocese and wants that kind of help and support, or who is part of a religious studies department in a school, or a chaplaincy in a university, what should they do in order to access the support you can give, John?
I think get in touch with us. I think that's the first thing. Actually being a contact point is really important. One thing I want to stress is that there's an awful lot of stuff going on already which we don't actually know about. It's quite hard to find out what's actually happening in a school or a parish these days, especially schools. But once you start to chat to people, you find out they're doing an awful lot. So celebrate that, share that. One thing I'd really like to see, the season of creation has not really taken off in the church like it should have done. It's been going for quite a long time, and it gives you a really good, a long time actually to celebrate creation. So one of the things we'd like to see, for instance, is prayers at every Mass about creation. And we started to get that in the run-up to COP26. We provided materials. CAFOD produced fantastic materials as well. But what I'd like to see is like the parish school coming to Mass, and at the end of Mass, tell the congregation what they're doing. Show the congregation. The kids love it. The congregation love it. And it gets the children into church as well. So it's kind of like, it's a no-win, what's it, no-win situation. It's a perfect.
A win-win situation.
A win-win situation, that's it, win-win situation for everybody. And it's so easy, well, it's comparatively easy to achieve that. You just need a bit of planning, that's all. And so, yeah, I see that there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of good materials actually on YouTube. You can find some really fantastic films. If you go to the website, you'll find some really lovely films to show, and especially prayers, wonderful prayers. I've recently received a prayer book online, which has got 70 prayers about the environment, and I found that extremely helpful. Just wonderful to have that resource from the whole of our tradition. I'm also a musician, and actually I've done articles on music about the environment, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. From all different backgrounds. It's new material coming out, so it's very exciting. There's a lot of I think we just got the momentum is there. It's just keeping on and just saying we're going to get somewhere, and also not getting too worried about results, because actually the Holy Spirit works in a different way. You have no idea what effect you may be having, so you just need to keep putting the message out.
One of the other things that strikes me about this, John, is that one of the things that we've struggled with, whether it be in church or faith-based organisations, or in, if you like, more broadly policy, political organisations generally, is engaging young people. And yet this is an area where young people are perhaps more interested, more concerned than others.
Yes.
And I was just wondering whether you were seeing any engagement of young people with your organisation, and whether you think that the animators and the Laudato Si movement can actually take that forward in terms of making that connection with younger people.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point, Gerald. It's actually an essential point. If I'm honest, I think the average age of us is probably in we're in the older generation, shall we say. And we have one or two younger animators, which is exciting. I've been in touch with some school teachers who've been very enthusiastic about what we were able to offer. Really excited about and using their stuff in the classroom, and very, very happy with what we were able to offer. There's a fundamental problem, which is it's very difficult to get into a school these days. I mean, even if you've got DBS check and all the rest of it, you'll have to go fill in all these forms, and the way around that is to use Zoom. So you actually say, I'll come to your Zoom, I'll put on a Zoom meeting for your class, I'm very happy to come talk to that, and that's the way around it. Don't go there, there's no point, you don't need to. And I know it's not the same, but it's a way in anyway. And and I think just ask the kids as well. Just, I talk to my grandsons about this, and they're really onto it. I mean, they really are. They're full of ideas. And I recently had in Croydon, I'm involved with Croydon Climate Action, and we were sent some photographs of items that children had written. And I just put them all on our Facebook page, and they were brilliant, because they were just simple ideas, just simple things that they could do. And start them young, and you get somewhere. But of course, there is an urgency about all this. I think that's one of the things that came out in the training, that there is a fast and a slow. Some people want to take things slower, they want to be more reflective. But there is an urgency. We've got to get on and do something, because time is running out.
Maybe the message with that, John, is that reflection and action can go together.
They do. Yes, they do. You have to have them both. You have to have both. And sometimes hasty action is not a good idea. And you say about the problem of getting young people involved, I would say it's a problem of getting some older people involved as well, because it does surprise me greatly that this country will spend a lot of money actually on animals, like for the RSPCA and so on, or the RSPB or whatever. There seems to be more attention to animals and to people sometimes. And yet we have incredible cruelty going on. which we're just not acknowledging. It's really strange. There's this misfit in society between these two different things. The British are famous for their love of animals, aren't they?
Well, the thing is, John, that the people are animals too, and maybe we need to address cruelty to both people and animals. And
Yes.
That's what matters. Because for me, I would say they both come from the same root. They both, come from a disdain for God's creation. That's why the Laudato Si is so important. Chris,
yes.
Is there anything you want to say in kind of like, rounding up and kind of bringing things to a conclusion? You're on mute, Chris.
I am. I'm not anymore. Only to thank John for this afternoon, but also to say that it's a dilemma, because you're talking about a 7-year plan, yet at the same time we know the situation is urgent, and certainly in terms of extinction of all sorts of things, which is happening now. Obviously there is a big issue about when people talk about climate change, talk about a climate emergency. They really mean the extinction of the human species. They think about the future of humans in that context. They don't really think about the extinction of the rest of creation, which is happening actually right now.
Yes.
And so there's this, to try and explain to people that yes, there is a climate emergency, which is coming if it's not already here. But there is an emergency already here for non-human species, which are going extinct as we speak. And anything we can do to explain that understanding and bring that together to people, I think is huge. So clearly we need action, as we've said, we need hope. And I think we have the hope, but we need the action. And we need the action now, and we needed it yesterday, and we continue. And COP26, I understand people's frustration at COP26, because the COP process has been going on for a long time now. And I work with others in these issues, and the United Nations, for example, extremely slow moving organization for very good reasons. I'm not being critical of the speed at which the UN work, because they have to bring consensus. But it takes a long, long time for something to happen, and we haven't got that time. I haven't got the answer how we speed up things like the UN, how we speed up governments to actually act on what they say before a COP26 or COP27 or whatever it will be next, and then nothing really happens until the next one. But we need to take action. And what I would say in finishing on that is that the action clearly needs to be at a global level, a national level, a regional level, all these levels. But it needs to be at the individual level, as you mentioned earlier. What can I do? What can I do? And not to feel, which is very easy to feel, but you shouldn't, is, well, what I ever do isn't going to make a jot of difference. It isn't going to, because it does make a difference. It makes a difference to the environment in whatever small way we can make a difference, but it makes a difference to the individual's well-being and the individual's spiritual life as well. So that is one of the things. So that the hope is critical, and we need to say to people, yes, these are huge issues. Yes, some of our national and international bodies don't move at the speed they should, but we as Catholics have this document. Going back to the document itself, we have this wonderful document that actually is probably the best document in the world on these issues, frankly. We should be proud of that, even though the church maybe hasn't worked as fast as it should, and others actually have taken more account, which is the irony of the whole thing. But as individual Catholics, we can do things now, today, this minute, about changing our lifestyle to be better for the whole of creation. And that is a takeaway message that I think I always like to push.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I just say hallelujah and praise the Lord to that, because I think it's just absolutely right. And just to say that we are involved as animators with a walk to COP27 in Egypt, which is going to be an online events in 7 cities. So we're already in touch with Sam Baker about that and how we can help him. And we've got animators in Europe who can help as well. And yeah, so I just say onwards and upwards. That's what I say. Have hope.
Hope.
Yeah, we must have hope. Really important.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, John. Thank you for that wonderful message again. Thank you for spending time with us, talking to us about animators and the Laudato Si movement. And great to see some action taking these things forward, which was something that we are happy to see. Is there anything, before we go, is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
There's so much to cover, Gerald.
This is true.
There is just so much to talk about, and there is so much material about. Actually, one of my roles, I said, is sending on emails to animators about all sorts of things. You'd be amazed the number of things that get sent to me now, and I honestly can't read it all. But the point is, passing on information is very important. We do need to be informed, especially about science. I think there's been so much conflict in the scientific community about what's actually happening to the planet. But I think in general, people have now really realized that it's already too late. And so we've actually got to put out what is the correct message, what is actually happening. And also, I would say that things like films on the BBC, like the current series about the planet, that kind of thing we need to promote to people. And people, I think people take on the message better if it's visual. That's just my impression. I think people seem to find that much easier to take on board. And yeah, there's just such a lot to share and a lot to learn, always learning and listening to others. And again, it comes back to the study process, which is really all about listening to each other. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that, John. And hopefully we can have you back and talk about progress with the animators and, you know, with the way things are happening. But thank you very much for your time today, and thank you, Chris, and thank you for watching us. And I hope you've enjoyed the last hour as much as we have. And if you want to get involved with Animators UK, then we'd have had the information on captions which you can use and get involved with them. Or if you want to get involved with us at Catholic Concern for Animals, then please feel free, and we'll have details of that as well. So thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you. Bye.